There's a type of pain that leaves no mark on the body, but cuts so deep inside that you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror anymore. A pain that starts so slowly you don't even notice when it moved in. That's how it was for me. My name was Clara, but truthfully, I had forgotten who Clara really was. I spent so much time trying to be the woman someone wanted me to be, that in the process, I completely lost myself. And when I woke up from that illusion, it was in the most painful way possible, in front of everyone I loved, hearing from the mouth of the man I thought would be my future, that I would never be enough. Before I continue, I want to ask you something. If this pain feels familiar, if you've ever felt this way, or know someone going through this right now, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications too, because I want more people to know they're not alone on this journey. I need you to understand something right from the start. This isn't just my story. This could be the story of anyone who once loved someone so much they forgot to love themselves first. And I'm here today to show you that it's possible to come back. It's possible to find yourself again. So stay with me until the end, because this story will show you that losing someone can actually be the beginning of truly finding yourself. His name was Raphael, and when he entered my life, it was as if the universe had finally decided I deserved to be happy. You know that feeling when everything fits together perfectly? The conversations flowed. The silences were comfortable. And the way he looked at me. It was as if I were the only person who existed in that moment. I remember the first time we saw each other. It was a Saturday afternoon, in a small coffee shop downtown. The sun came through the window, illuminating the old wooden tables, and the smell of fresh coffee mixed with cinnamon filled the air. He was sitting alone, reading a book, and when our eyes met, he smiled. It wasn't just any smile. It was the kind of smile that makes you forget even your own name. We talked for hours. He was funny, intelligent, attentive. He asked me questions about myself, about my dreams, about what made me wake up happy in the morning. No one had ever shown such genuine interest in who I was, or at least that's what I thought. Because now, looking back, I realized that all those questions weren't to really get to know me. They were to discover the map of how to mold me. But in that moment, I could only feel the warmth in my chest, that butterfly in my stomach that makes you believe that finally, you've found someone who sees you. In the first few months, it was everything I had always dreamed of. He took me to dinner at beautiful places, sent me good morning messages every day, called me just to hear my voice. We talked about the future as if it were something already decided, our house, our children, the places we would visit together. I remember lying in bed at night, looking at the ceiling and thinking, I finally found my place. But what I didn't know was that this place I thought I had found was actually a prison being built brick by brick, word by word, smile by smile. The changes started subtly, so subtly that at first I didn't even notice. He would comment on my clothes. "Don't you think that dress is a bit too flashy?" He'd say with a smile that seemed innocent. "I just think you look prettier when you dress more discreetly, more elegant, you know?" And I, wanting to please him, wanting to be the woman he admired, started trading my colorful clothes for more neutral tones, the short skirts for longer dresses, the bold makeup for something more natural. Then came the comments about my personality. "You laugh too loud, Clara. People stare." Or, "You talk too much when you're excited. You need to learn to be more contained." Each comment came wrapped in concern, in care, as if he were just helping me become a better version of myself. And I believed it. God, how I believed it. I started policing myself, laughed quieter, spoke less, contained myself, erased myself. But that night, everything would change in a way I never imagined. It was a Friday. We were at a dinner with his friends, a couple he had known for years and I was meeting for the first time. The restaurant was beautiful, one of those with low lights and soft music in the background. Small candles flickered on the tables, creating dancing shadows on the walls. I had chosen a simple dress, nothing flashy, exactly how he liked it. I had practiced in the mirror how to laugh more quietly, how to speak without gesturing so much. I was trying to be perfect. The conversation was light. We talked about work, about weekend plans, about movies we had watched. And then his friend's wife asked me, And you two? When's the wedding happening? Raphael has always been such a dreamer. He must be dying to make it official, right? She spoke with a genuine smile, the kind that expects a happy answer. And I, naive, looked at Raphael expecting to see that sparkle in his eye he always had when we talked about our future. But what I saw was different. He gave a little laugh. It wasn't a nervous or shy laugh. It was a laugh of contempt. And then he said, with a naturalness that froze my blood, "Mary, first she needs to learn to value herself, right? Otherwise she'll keep thinking that someone like me is too much for her." Time stopped. I swear I felt the entire world go silent. My heart stopped beating for a second, and when it came back it was racing so fast I thought it would jump out of my mouth. My face caught fire. My hands, which were on the table, started trembling. I looked around and saw the uncomfortable faces of the couple. The wife opened her mouth as if to say something, but no sound came out. The husband cleared his throat and quickly changed the subject, but the damage was already done. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I felt hot tears starting to burn in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall there. Not in front of them. Not in front of him. I forced a weak smile and mumbled something about needing to go to the bathroom. I got up from the table with wobbly legs, holding my purse so tight my knuckles turned white. In the bathroom, I locked myself in one of the stalls and let the tears fall. Silent, thick, loaded with years of nullifying myself, diminishing myself, losing myself, trying to be loved. I looked in the mirror after composing myself. My reflection showed a woman I didn't recognize. Deep, dark circles, even with makeup. Eyes without shine. A smile that never reached the eyes. Who was this person? Where was the Clara who laughed loud, who wore vibrant colors, who spoke with passion about the things she loved? When did she disappear? And it was there that I realized he had never truly loved me. I went back to the table. We finished dinner in awkward silence. Raphael acted as if nothing had happened, laughing and chatting normally. But me, I was somewhere else. My mind was racing, replaying every moment, every comment, every time I had diminished myself to fit the version he wanted of me. And for the first time, I felt anger, not just at him, but at myself, for allowing it, for accepting it, for believing I needed to change to be worthy of love. When we got home that night, I didn't say anything. He tried to kiss me, like he always did, but I pulled away. I went straight to the bedroom, locked myself in, and lay on the bed still dressed. The pillow soaked with tears. I cried until I had no more strength, until my throat hurt, until my eyes were swollen. And sometime in the early morning, between sleep and wakefulness, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to live like this anymore. Little did I know that that humiliation would be the beginning of my strength. The following days were the hardest of my life. Waking up seemed like an impossible task. Looking at my phone and seeing messages from him pretending nothing had happened made me nauseous. "Good morning, love. Did you sleep well?" As if he hadn't publicly humiliated me less than 24 hours ago. As if my tears meant nothing. As if I meant nothing. I stayed home for 3 days without going out. I called work saying I was unwell, which wasn't a lie. I was unwell, but not physically. It was my soul that was sick, wounded, bleeding inside in a way that no medicine could cure. I spent hours lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I had gotten there, how I had allowed someone to make me feel so small. I avoided the world, didn't respond to messages from friends, didn't answer calls. I just wanted to stay there, in my bubble of pain, because at least there I didn't have to pretend I was okay, didn't have to smile when inside I was shattered. The silence of the apartment was deafening, but it was preferable to the noise of the world out there judging, opining, saying I should have noticed earlier. But the truth is I did notice. I just didn't want to see. Raphael kept sending messages. "Are you okay? Why aren't you responding? Are you mad about the other night? It was just a joke, Clara. You're too sensitive." And it was reading this last message that something inside me broke once and for all. But this time, in a different way. This time, it wasn't just pain. It was the brutal and liberating awareness that I didn't have to accept this anymore. I blocked his number. Simple as that. No explanations. No big speeches. No giving him the pleasure of trying to convince me I was overreacting. I blocked it and breathed. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe completely, but the journey was just beginning. On the 5th day after that fateful dinner, a friend of mine, Julia, showed up at my door. She didn't send a message warning, didn't call asking permission. She simply rang the doorbell at 3 p.m. and stood there until I answered. When I opened the door, looking sleepy, with deep dark circles and messy hair, she didn't say anything. She just hugged me, and I fell apart right there, at the apartment entrance, in her arms, crying everything I still had stored up. Julia made me tea. We sat on the couch, and for the first time, I told her everything, every comment, every veiled humiliation. Every time I had erased myself trying to be enough, she listened to it all in silence, holding my hand. And when I finished, she said something that would be forever engraved in me. Clara, you know that loving someone should never mean stopping being yourself, right? If to be with someone you need to erase yourself, then that person doesn't love you. They love the idea of control they have over you. Those words fell like a bomb. Control. That was it. It wasn't love. It was control. And I had confused the two, because he had been smart enough to wrap the control as care, as concern, as an attempt to make me better. But you don't make anyone better by destroying who they are. You don't love anyone by trying to transform them into someone else. Julia stayed with me that night. We ordered food, watched bad movies that made us laugh even without being funny, and for the first time in days, I felt a small but real relief. It was like someone had lit a tiny candle in a completely dark room. It was still dark, but at least now there was a light. Small, fragile, but there. She was the one who suggested therapy. Clara, you need professional help. Not because you're weak. You're one of the strongest people I know. But because there are wounds we can't heal alone. And it's okay to need help. I resisted at first. Therapy seemed like admitting defeat. It seemed to confirm that I really was the problem, as Raphael always insinuated, but Julia insisted. And a week later, I was sitting in a small, cozy room with pastel-colored walls and a comfortable armchair, in front of a woman with a gentle look who asked me, Clara, tell me, when was the last time you felt truly yourself? And I didn't know how to answer. The therapy sessions were revealing and painful at the same time. I discovered that what I had experienced with Raphael was a pattern. It wasn't the first time I had nullified myself to please someone. Since childhood, I had learned that my value was tied to others' approval. If my parents were happy with me, I was good. If my teachers praised me, I was worth something. If my relationships worked, I was doing it right. But what about me? What did I think of myself? Who was I when no one was looking? I didn't know, and it was terrifying to realize that. My therapist gave me an exercise. Every day, I should write 3 things about myself that had nothing to do with other people. It couldn't be, I'm a good friend, or I'm dedicated at work. It had to be something about who I really was, at my core. In the first few days, the page stayed blank. I stared at the paper not knowing what to write. Who was Clara without being defined by others? But gradually, words started to appear. I like waking up early and watching the sunrise. I love dancing alone in my room. I feel alive when I write. Small revelations about myself that I had buried so deep I thought they didn't exist anymore. But they did. They were there, just waiting for me to remember them. And then, something started to change. I started small. I went back to wearing the clothes I liked. I bought a red dress, something Raphael would hate, and wore it to go to the supermarket on a Saturday morning. It might seem silly, but I felt an inexplicable freedom just being there, choosing fruits, wearing something I wanted to wear, without worrying if anyone would approve or not. I went back to listening to the music I loved, the loud ones, the upbeat ones, the ones that make you want to dance in the middle of the room. And I danced. I danced alone, in my apartment, with the curtains closed at first, because I was still afraid of judgment, even if it was just imaginary. But gradually, I opened the curtains. I danced with the window open. I danced as if no one was watching, because for the first time, it didn't matter if they were. I resumed my journal. I used to write a lot when I was younger. Stories, poems, random thoughts. But I had stopped when Raphael said it was a waste of time, and that I should focus on more productive things. I bought a new notebook, with a brown leather cover and yellowed pages, and went back to writing. At first, it was just venting. Pages and pages of anger, pain, confusion. But gradually, the words started changing. Hope began to appear. Dreams, plans. And the most ironic part, it was precisely when I started to flourish again that Raphael reappeared. 3 months. That's how long it took. 3 months of total silence. And then, on a Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it, and it was him. "Clara, it's me. Sorry about the new number. I know you blocked me, but I need to talk to you. I made a mistake. I know that now. Can you just give me a chance to explain?" My first instinct was to delete it, block again, but this time, something was different. I was different. I didn't feel that tightness in my chest, that urge to cry, that consuming anger. I just felt nothing, and it was liberating to realize he no longer had any power over me. I responded, "We can talk. Coffee at the plaza at 3 on Saturday. Short, direct, no emotion." That week was strange. Part of me was curious to see what he had to say. Another part, the part that had grown in those 3 months, knew it didn't matter what he said. Nothing would change. I wasn't going back. This wasn't about giving him a second chance. It was about giving myself closure. Saturday arrived. It was a beautiful day, with sun but not too hot, and a light breeze that moved the tree leaves. I got ready calmly. I chose a floral dress, colorful, vibrant, exactly the type he used to criticize. I put on red lipstick. I left my hair loose and messy the way I liked it. I looked in the mirror before leaving, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled at my reflection. "You look beautiful," I said to myself, "and you are enough." I arrived at the plaza first. I sat on a bench under a large tree, from where I could see children playing on the playground, couples walking hand in hand, life going on its normal course, and I felt part of it, no longer a spectator of my own life, but an active participant. Raphael arrived 5 minutes late. When I saw him from afar, walking toward me, I noticed something I hadn't noticed before. He was just a man. Nothing more, nothing less. He wasn't the monster my mind had created. He wasn't the Prince Charming I had imagined at the beginning. He was just a man with his own problems, his own insecurities, his own wounds he tried to heal by hurting others. He sat next to me with a nervous smile. "You look different," he said, looking at me as if trying to figure out what had changed. "I am," I replied. Simple as that. "Beautiful. You look beautiful. Thank you." The silence between us was dense, but not uncomfortable, at least not for me. He kept fidgeting with his hands, a habit of his when he was nervous. "Clara, I thought a lot about that night. About everything, actually. And I know I messed up. I know I hurt you." I remained silent, letting him speak. "I had some personal problems, with my family, with work, and I ended up taking it out on you. It wasn't fair, and I'm sorry. Really." He paused, waiting for some reaction from me. When it didn't come, he continued, "I wanted to ask you for a chance, for us to start over. I promise it will be different this time." And there it was. The request that 3 months ago would have made me cry with happiness. The request that the old Clara would have accepted without thinking twice, because she thought her value depended on being chosen by him. But I was no longer that Clara. "You know, Raphael," I began, my voice calm and firm. "For a long time, I thought the problem was me. I thought that if I changed enough, if I fit into the mold you wanted, you would finally see me, would truly love me." I paused, looking directly into his eyes. "But I realized something. You never wanted to see me. You wanted me to be a reflection of what made you feel good about yourself. And when I wasn't, you diminished me until I believed I really wasn't enough." He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised my hand, asking for silence. "Let me finish. These 3 months without you were the most difficult and the most liberating of my life. I discovered who I am again. I went back to liking myself. And you know what's funniest? I didn't need your approval for that. Didn't need you to find me beautiful, intelligent, or enough, because I think so. And that's what matters." Tears started falling from his eyes. "Clara, please." "No," I said, and my voice didn't waver at all. "I forgive you, Raphael. I forgive because carrying anger would only hurt me. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And it definitely doesn't mean going back. You taught me something very valuable, that I will never, never again erase myself to fit someone's vision of me. Not for you, not for anyone. I got up from the bench. He stayed there sitting, suddenly seeming small. I hope you find peace, truly. But that peace won't come from me, just as mine no longer comes from you. I gave one last look, not of anger or sadness, but of closure. Goodbye, Raphael. And I left. I walked through the plaza without looking back, feeling the warm sun on my skin, the wind in my hair, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely, absolutely free. In the months that followed, life didn't become magically perfect. I still had difficult days. I still had moments of doubt. I still caught myself, sometimes, falling into old patterns of questioning myself, of diminishing myself. But the difference is that now I recognize those moments, and I fought against them. I continued in therapy. I discovered layers about myself I didn't even know existed. I discovered that my need for approval came from childhood, from parents who, unintentionally, taught me that love was conditional, that I needed to behave a certain way, be a certain way, to deserve affection. And that had created a pattern I replicated in all my relationships. But I also discovered my strength. I discovered that surviving that pain, that humiliation, that loss of myself, made me stronger than I ever imagined I could be. It's not the strength that comes from never falling, but the strength that comes from getting up every time you fall. I went back to doing things I loved. I signed up for a dance class. At first I stayed in the corner of the room, afraid of making mistakes, of being judged, but gradually I loosened up, and I discovered that dancing was more than moving your body. It was a way to express everything that was inside me without needing words. It was liberating. I started writing not just in my journal, but for other people. I created a blog where I shared my journey of self-discovery. I didn't expect anyone to read it, but to my surprise, hundreds of people started following me. Women, and men too, who were going through the same thing, who felt lost, erased, suffocated in relationships that drained instead of filled, and receiving messages from them, knowing that my story was helping other people find themselves too, gave purpose to my pain. Suddenly, everything I had been through wasn't in vain. It was learning. It was growth. It was transformation. I started going out more. I met new people. I made deep friendships with incredible women who taught me that female solidarity isn't competition, but support. That we don't need to tear each other down to rise. We can rise together, lifting whoever is beside us. I changed jobs. The old one was good, but safe, too comfortable. And I realized that for years I had chosen the comfort of security instead of the risk of following my dreams. So I applied for a position at a company I had always admired, even though I thought I had no chance. And to my surprise, I was called. And even more surprising, I did well in the interview. I got the position. This new job challenged me in ways I didn't expect. I had to speak in public, lead teams, make difficult decisions, and every time I succeeded, every small victory, was proof to myself that I was capable, that I had always been capable. I had just forgotten. I moved to a new apartment, smaller than the previous one, but mine, completely mine. I painted the walls in bright colors. I put plants in every corner. I hung pictures with motivational phrases I wrote myself. I created a space that was a reflection of who I really was, not who someone wanted me to be. And for the first time, I felt at home. But the healing process wasn't linear. There were days I woke up and the first thing that came to my mind were his words. You need to learn to value yourself, as if I had no value, as if I needed his approval to exist. On those days, it was harder. The voice of doubt whispered, what if he's right? What if you really aren't enough? But I learned to deal with that voice. I learned that it wasn't the truth. It was just the echo of a wound that was still healing, and I learned to respond to it. I am enough. I always have been. And if someone can't see that, the problem isn't mine. There were days I caught myself checking his social media, wanting to know if he was okay, if he had found someone else, if he was sorry. And whenever I did that, I felt bad afterward, because it didn't matter what he was doing. He was no longer part of my story, so I deleted him from all social media, not with anger, but with the understanding that to truly move forward, I needed to close that door completely. There were days I thought about sending a message, when something good happened and I wanted to share, or when something bad happened and I looked for comfort. It was a reflex, a habit. But every time I picked up my phone to do it, I stopped, took a deep breath, and called Julia, or my therapist, or wrote in my journal. Because I learned that seeking comfort from someone who hurt you is like going back to the fire that almost destroyed you, hoping that this time the fire won't burn. 6 months after that meeting at the plaza, I met Marcelo. I wasn't looking for anyone. Actually, I had decided I was going to spend some time alone, focusing on myself. But life has those ironies. When you stop looking, sometimes you find. It was in a bookstore. I was in the poetry section, looking for a book I had seen recommended on someone's blog I followed. And I bumped into him. Literally. I knocked over a pile of books he was holding, and we were there, both crouched down, picking up volumes from the floor, apologizing at the same time, laughing at the embarrassment. "Do you like poetry?" he asked, and there was something genuine in the way he asked. It wasn't a pickup line. It was real curiosity. "I do," I replied. "You." I didn't understand much, but I'm trying to learn. My niece is in a phase of writing poems, and I want to be able to talk to her about it. And it was so simple, so natural. We talked right there, between the bookshelves, for almost an hour, about poetry, about books, about life. And when he asked for my number, I didn't feel that tightness in my chest I used to feel. I didn't feel the need to analyze every word, every gesture, looking for danger signs. I just felt lightness. Our first date was different from everything I had experienced before. He asked me what I liked to do, and when I said I loved going to art museums, his eyes sparkled. "Me too. There's a new exhibition at the Modern Art Museum. Would you like to go?" And we went. We spent hours walking through the galleries, commenting on the works, laughing at the absurd interpretations we made up, taking silly photos, imitating the poses of the sculptures. And most importantly, he listened, really. When I talked about what a work made me feel, he didn't interrupt with his own opinion. He listened, reflected, and then shared what he thought, not to correct my view, but to add to the conversation. At the end of the day, when we were sitting in a cafe near the museum, he looked at me and said something that was engraved in my memory. "You know, Clara, I don't know what you went through before, but I see that you're an incredible person, and I just want to get to know you more. No pressure, no rush, just get to know who you really are." And there, in that simple cafe, with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of conversations around us, I realized the difference between someone who wants to mold you and someone who wants to know you. Raphael never wanted to know me. He wanted to transform me. But Marcelo? Marcelo was interested in discovering who I was, not in deciding who I should be. But even so, I was afraid. Afraid to open up again. Afraid to trust. Afraid that in the end, he would be the same. So I went slowly. Very slowly. And he respected that. He never pressured me. Never complained that I was being closed off or distant. He was just there, consistent, patient, waiting for me to feel safe enough to lower my defenses. And gradually, I opened my heart again. I told him about Raphael on a rainy night. 3 months after we started dating, we were in my apartment, sitting on the couch, listening to the sound of rain on the window. I had held that story for so long, afraid that telling it would make him see me differently. But that night, I felt it was time. He listened to everything in silence. He didn't try to minimize my pain with cliches. He didn't say, "He didn't deserve you," as if that solved everything. He just held my hand and said, "Thank you for trusting me enough to share this. And I want you to know something. You'll never have to change who you are to be with me. I chose you exactly as you are. With your vibrant colors, your excited way of speaking, your loud laugh, all of that is part of you, and I love every part." I cried, but not from sadness. I cried because I finally understood what it was to be truly seen, to be truly loved, not for an edited version of myself, but for the complete person, with all my imperfections, all my scars, all my idiosyncrasies, and that healed something in me I didn't even know was still broken. But I also understood something important. I didn't need Marcelo to be complete. He was a complement, not a necessity. The difference is subtle but essential. With Raphael, I thought I needed him to exist, to have value, to be someone. With Marcelo, I knew I was already complete alone. He just made my life more beautiful, more joyful, more full. But if for some reason it didn't work out, I knew I'd be okay, because I had found myself, and once you find yourself, no one can lose you again. A year after that humiliating dinner, I returned to the same restaurant. Not because I wanted to relive the trauma, but because I wanted to prove to myself that that place no longer had power over me. I went with Julia, with Marcelo, and with other friends I had made in this new phase of life. We sat at a different table, but close enough that I could see the place where everything had fallen apart. And you know what I felt? Nothing. No pain, no anger, no sadness, just gratitude. Because if that hadn't happened, I never would have started the journey of finding myself. I would have continued erasing myself, diminishing myself, losing myself, until nothing was left of me. During dinner, someone made a toast. To Clara, who is one of the most inspiring people we know, for everything you overcame, and for the incredible woman you are. And when I raised my glass, looking around the table, seeing faces of people who truly loved me, who celebrated who I was instead of trying to change me, I finally understood. The greatest proof of love isn't when someone chooses you, it's when you choose yourself. And until that person appears, or even if they never appear, you have yourself. And when you really know yourself, when you really love yourself, when you really value yourself, you discover that you were always enough, that you always had everything inside you, that you never needed external validation to exist. You just needed to remember that. Today, when I wake up, the first thing I do is look at myself in the mirror and say, "Good morning, beautiful. Today is going to be an incredible day because you're alive and you're exactly who you need to be." It might seem silly, but these small daily affirmations completely changed how I see myself. Today, when I put on clothes, I choose based on how it makes me feel, not what others will think. If I want to wear a vibrant red dress, I wear it. If I want to wear ripped jeans and dirty sneakers, I wear them. Because my clothes are an expression of my personality, not an attempt to please others' expectations. Today, when I laugh loud, the way I always laughed before someone told me it was too much, because my joy doesn't need to be contained to fit anyone's comfort. Today, when I talk about something I'm passionate about, I speak with enthusiasm, with gesticulation, with sparkle in my eyes, because my passion for life doesn't need to be moderated so as not to bother. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who survived, who fell, who got hurt, who got lost, but who found her way back, and most importantly, found a better path than the previous one. The scars are there. They always will be. There are days they hurt, especially when I hear stories of other women going through what I went through. But I learned that scars aren't signs of weakness. They're marks of battles you won. They're reminders that you're stronger than anything that tried to break you. I continue in therapy, not because I'm still broken, but because I understood that taking care of emotional health is as important as taking care of physical health. It's maintenance, it's prevention, it's self-care. And there's no shame in that. I continue writing on my blog. The messages I receive daily remind me that my pain had a purpose. Every woman who writes to me saying, "Your story gave me courage to leave." Every man who thanks me for opening his eyes about behaviors he had and didn't realize were harmful. Every person who simply says, "Thank you for making me feel less alone." All of this transforms my pain into something bigger. And I realize something profound in this process. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. It's full of ups and downs, advances and setbacks, days when you feel invincible, and days when you can barely get out of bed. And that's okay, because healing isn't about being perfect. It's about being human. I learned to forgive, not just Raphael, but mainly myself. I forgave for taking so long to leave. I forgave for accepting being treated that way. I forgave for losing myself, because I realized I was doing the best I could with the emotional tools I had at the time. And now, with new tools, new perspectives, new strengths, I choose differently. I learned that true love doesn't hurt. True love doesn't diminish. True love doesn't require you to stop being who you are. True love sees you completely, with all your imperfections, all your peculiarities, all your scars, and chooses you anyway, not despite who you are, but exactly because of who you are. I learned that loneliness isn't being alone. Loneliness is being with someone and still feeling invisible, and that being alone, on the other hand, can be the most courageous and liberating act of self-care you can do. I learned that external validation is like fast food. It satisfies in the moment, but doesn't truly nourish. The only validation that really matters, that really sustains, that really transforms, is the one that comes from within. I learned that saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you aware of your limits. And respecting your own limits is the first way to respect yourself. I learned that asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage. It's recognizing that we're human, that we have vulnerabilities, and that it's okay not to be able to do everything alone all the time. And above all, I learned that the most important person in my life is me. Not in a selfish or narcissistic way, but in a healthy and necessary way. Because if I don't put myself first in my own heart, no one will do it for me. And more importantly, no one should have to do it. Today, 2 years after that night that changed everything, I'm a different person. Not because I stopped being who I was. On the contrary, I'm a different person because I finally went back to being who I always was, before someone tried to convince me I needed to be different. I found again the Clara who laughed loud, who danced alone, who wore vibrant colors, who spoke with passion about what she loved. But I also met a new Clara, one who is stronger, more aware, firmer in her boundaries, more confident in herself. The best version of me isn't the one that pleases everyone. It's the one that pleases me. And you know something? I found out recently, through mutual acquaintances, that Raphael is in a new relationship. And when they told me, expecting some dramatic reaction, I just smiled and said, I hope he learned to treat someone better. And it was true. There was no resentment, no envy, no pain. There was just a genuine wish that he had grown, matured, learned, because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I chose to live, not to poison myself. The other day, I was organizing old boxes in the closet and found a photo of us. One of the first, taken at that coffee shop on our first date. I looked at that photo and barely recognized the woman I was there. Not physically. Physically, I looked the same. But the look was empty. It was of someone who was waiting to be filled by someone else. Of someone who had forgotten she was already complete alone. I put the photo in an envelope and stored it at the bottom of the box. I didn't throw it away because it's part of my story, and I learned to honor every part of it, even the painful ones. But I also didn't keep it in sight, because my focus now is on the present and the future, not the past. My therapist asked me in a recent session, if you could go back in time and talk to the Clara of 2 years ago, what would you say to her? I thought for a moment and replied, I would say, Clara, I know it hurts now. I know it feels like the world has ended. I know you think you'll never recover from this. But trust me, you will. And you'll come out of this stronger, wiser, more complete than you ever imagined possible. This pain you're feeling, it didn't come to destroy you. It came to transform you. So breathe, cry everything you need to cry, but then get up. Because life is waiting for you. Real life. The one where you're the protagonist, not the supporting character in someone else's story. And I cried there, in that welcoming office, not from sadness, but from pride. Pride in having come so far. Pride in having gotten up. Pride in having chosen myself. Today, when I look to the future, I no longer see fear. I see possibilities. I see adventures. I see growth. I see a life full of colors, of laughter, of love, especially self-love. I see healthy relationships, true friendships, opportunities to grow and help other people grow too. And if someone asks what the turning point was, the exact moment when everything changed, I would say it wasn't one moment. It was several. It was the first time I cried and allowed myself to feel the pain instead of burying it. It was when I called to schedule the first therapy session. It was when I bought that red dress and went out even though I was afraid. It was when I wrote the first word in my journal after months of blank pages. It was when I danced alone for the first time. It was when I blocked his number. It was when I said no at our last meeting. It was every small choice I made to choose myself. Transformation isn't an event, it's a process. It's choosing every day to love yourself a little more, respect yourself a little more, value yourself a little more. It's waking up and deciding that today you're going to be kind to yourself, that today you're going to forgive your mistakes, that today you're going to celebrate your victories, however small they may be. And sometimes on difficult days, because there will always be difficult days, it's simply waking up and deciding to continue, because continuing, when everything inside you wants to give up, is the most revolutionary act of self-love that exists. Today I know that losing someone can be the first step to finding yourself again. I know that sometimes life needs to take away what you think you need to show you what you really deserve. I know that doors close not to punish you, but to redirect you. And I know, above all, that the most important journey you'll make in life isn't finding someone to love. It's finding yourself and learning to love yourself first. Because when you truly love yourself, you don't accept less than you deserve. You don't diminish yourself to fit anyone's standards. You don't silence your voice to make others feel comfortable. You simply exist, fully, authentically, magnificently, as you should have always been. And if today you're reading this, or watching, and you're going through something similar, if you're in a relationship that diminishes you, if you're with someone who makes you question your worth, if you're losing yourself trying to be loved, I want to tell you something. You are enough. You always have been. You always will be. You don't need to change who you are to be worthy of love. You're already worthy. And the person who should love you first, unconditionally, without reservations, is yourself. It's not selfishness. It's survival. It's health. It's necessity. Because you can't give to others what you don't have. And if you don't have self-love, there's no way to build healthy relationships with anyone. So, if this story touched you in some way, if you saw a piece of yourself in it, leave a heart in the comments. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now, because I'm going to keep sharing real stories. Stories of overcoming, stories that show that no matter how deep you fell, it's always possible to get up again. And never, never forget, you are enough, exactly as you are. You don't need anyone's approval to feel complete. You don't need to change your essence to be loved, because the right person will love you not despite who you are, but exactly because of who you are. And until that person appears, or even if they never appear, you have yourself. And when you really know yourself, when you really love yourself, when you really value yourself, you discover that you were always enough, that you always had everything inside you, that you never needed external validation to exist. You just needed to remember that. So this is my final message to you. Remember. Remember who you were before someone made you doubt yourself. Remember your dreams, your passions, what makes you laugh until your belly hurts. Remember that you're strong, that you're capable, that you're enough. And if you forgot, that's okay, because this is your permission to find yourself again, to rediscover yourself, to come back to yourself. The journey won't be easy. There will be days you'll want to give up. There will be nights you'll cry into your pillow. There will be moments you'll doubt if you can really do it. But you can, because you're already stronger than you imagine. The proof of that is that you're here, now, reading this, looking for something that resonates with you. That's already strength. That's already courage. And I want you to know, you're not alone. Thousands of people have been through this. Thousands are going through it now. And thousands will go through it in the future. But each of them, each of us, has the ability to rise, to heal, to find ourselves again. And you do too. So take a deep breath, dry those tears, and remember, you've been through difficult days before and survived. You've faced storms, and you're still here. You've fallen and gotten up, and you'll do it again, as many times as necessary, until you don't need to fall anymore. Because you're not your falls. You're your ability to get up. You're not your wounds. You're your ability to heal. You're not your past. You're all the possibilities of your future. And your future, it's bright. It's full of love, especially self-love. It's full of achievements, joys, growth. It's everything you always deserved, but maybe forgot you deserved. So go ahead. Live, shine, love, starting with yourself, because this is your story. And you're the author of it. No one else. Just you. And when you look back one day at the path you've traveled, you'll understand that every pain had a purpose. Every tear planted a seed. Every fall prepared you for flight. And you'll be grateful. Not for the suffering itself, but for the transformation it provided. For the incredible person you became because of, and despite, it. Thank you for staying with me until here. For listening to my story. For allowing it to perhaps touch a piece of your heart. If you also have a story of overcoming, of resilience, of finding yourself after losing yourself, share it in the comments. Let's create a network of support, understanding, love, because together, we're stronger. And remember, the greatest love story you'll ever live isn't with another person. It's with yourself. And that story, it starts now. The moment you decide you're worth it, that you are, and always have been, enough. See you in the next video. And until then, love yourself a lot. You deserve it.